Do you ever run into or drop something, then mentally facepalm yourself? It's like, damn, I totally intended to run into my dresser, then cause everything on its surface to fall to the floor. Gold star, go team. Exactly what I wanted. Exactly what I wanted is a phrase that a friend of mine and I came up with during the beginning of senior year. We had all sorts of plans. Then came COVID and distance learning. Exactly what we wanted. As this year was full of many events and situations that were far from ideal, we thought we might as well make the most out of the situation, or at least find humor in the not so great. A time that I felt like exactly what I wanted described my life situation perfectly was a couple months ago when I overheard my mom talking to my dad, telling him that she found a lighter, cigarette, and a flashlight near the side of his car. They started speculating whether or not something had been stolen, but the catch was that the car seemed fine. So, we were just like, okay, nothing happened. But of course when you think nothing happened, something obviously happened. Despite that, at the time, I didn't think too much of it. Later, I get into the car and start the engine. And when I turn the ignition, it's like a race car just started. Immediately, my brain just froze, and I quickly removed the keys from the ignition. I kid you not, I literally looked around as if the sound was gonna come from somewhere else and totally not just me. Then I realized that the sound was coming from the car. Something somehow clicked, and the next thing I knew, I was on the floor, on my stomach, looking underneath the car. And I see this gap between these two pipes that looks like as if something is supposed to be there. Now, I may be no mechanic, but I had a hunch that something was supposed to be there. Anyways, I sprint back into the house to tell my parents that something had indeed been stolen from the car. I wonder what it must have been like for some innocent bystander just standing across the street and hearing this noise that makes you think you're at the Indianapolis 500 and not suburban Mountain View. Anyway, we later learned that the car's catalytic converter was stolen. It's supposedly a pretty important part of the car that reduces toxic gas emissions. Evidently, it was exactly what I wanted. Later that day, we talked to a mechanic and their verdict was that in the dead of night, someone came and hacksawed the catalytic converter from the car. Now, it may be my pride, but I would think that I'd hear someone in our driveway cutting a steel pipe from our car. But, I guess at the ripe age of 17, my hearing is already failing me. As our family shares 2 cars, this left us with 1. Not 2 days later, I am driving the one working car that we have, and then I proceed to lock my keys out of the car. Exactly what I wanted does not even cover it. Fun fact, I actually did this in the Alta Vista parking lot, and I will forever remember that place as the parking lot where I first locked my keys in the car, because yes, I then did it again, not a month later, but that's not important. The car incident was quite out of the ordinary. Thank God. When it comes to things not going to plan, they're usually smaller, less consequential things, like the time that I prepared cereal and only upon getting to the table realized I brought a fork and not a spoon. Or that time when I ate half a can of pineapple since I hadn't had it since I was 5, but then proceeded to break. Sorry, there's a bug. That's exactly what I wanted. But then proceeded to break out in hives an hour later. Learning I was allegedly allergic to pineapple was exactly what I wanted. Oh, or when you're behind on work and your English teacher checks your script and when you see comments on it, you wince because your script was nowhere near ready to be seen by anyone. Not that I would know or anything. Obviously, things don't always go our way in life, but that's kind of in the job description. I also think about what great stories they'll make once I get over the initial embarrassment. It's as if I've remembered some of my funniest mishaps from this year, just to share them with the class through stand-up comedy. I guess you could say it's exactly what I wanted. Some humor techniques I used for my stand-up piece was a lot of callbacks, and this is because my main message/topic was exactly what I wanted, and so I used that throughout my piece. And then the phrase exactly what I wanted is also used ironically because when I use it, it's evidently not something that I wanted to happen. I also have some understatements thrown in there, like when my parents found those weird things at the side of the car, and then I'm like, huh, that's weird, or that's odd. Like, yeah, that is odd. As another understatement was when I was talking about what a catalytic converter actually does, and I'm trying to make an attempt that, like, it's not very important when evidently the words I'm saying, this is a pretty important part of the car, and we could not drive it without it. And I also poke fun at myself throughout the entire piece, but I don't think self-deprecation is in the comedy toolbox. I think you could say like either like blunder or wisecrack about myself. I also could be using satire. I was using exaggeration to show how loud the car was. In general, a lot of irony, a lot of sarcasm, and I think that just comes from me being a person who uses that a lot and thinks a lot like that, and then that just translated into my work. So at this point, thank you for watching my humor project.